Hey everybody, welcome back to Seller Performance Solutions. I'm flying solo today. I wanted to talk about the Seller Growth Summit, first one in New York that they've done. As far as I know, first larger official Amazon event in New York, like a conference. Hopefully there'll be more because it was worthwhile. And I'll run through a few of the ways it was, except for the happy hour that we had, which was a networking happy hour that I think was pretty strong and maybe better attended than the happy hour Amazon had at the conference. We'll save that story for another time. I'll just talk about the key points from the conference, the conversations I had with some of the Amazon execs that were there. A handful of people were there giving different types of talks, walking people through the tools, the AI tool changes that they have proposed. Seller Assistant was one of them. And Seller Assistant, they're going to try to beef it up a little bit by Q4 or heading into next year. But in the next few months, make it more of a problem solver, not so much a problem flagger, not just an informational tool, but give you a way of interacting via Amazon's AI with solution mechanisms. I want to see as many examples of these that, whether it worked or it didn't work, that you have. Feel free to share those. You can always email them to me, chris@ecommercechris.com, or DM me on LinkedIn if that's easier for you. But they went into the different AI improvements quite a bit. It wasn't just for Seller Assistant. It was IP claim submissions, legal teams, compliance issues. They talked a lot about the marketing teams and tools and processes and how those will improve. I listened in a little bit on that. I was more focused on the problem solving part, of course, but especially if your intellectual property is infringed. The key takeaways I got from the breakout session with a couple of different executives, I'll put them in the show notes, in terms of they were also interested in hearing examples and seeing things. I'd encourage people not to track down people who spoke at the Seller Growth Summit and drown them with too much information, pages and pages of text. Maybe whittle it down into something bite-sized that they can start with, because they want to see how they can, for example, on the IP claim side, reduce the churn, reduce all the repeat submissions, reduce the likelihood that Amazon emails you or messages you asking for more info, especially when you've already given it. So I thought that was a good sign that they're aware that there's a lot of back and forth on stuff you've already provided. Maybe this is an opportunity for them to reduce some of the constant requests for info that has already been submitted. Maybe they've got better internal tools for reviewing what you've already sent. But beyond that, they understand the complexity of something like different types of intellectual property complaints. Supposedly, they're developing nuances in the tools that'll accommodate different types of IP complaints, trademark, copyright, design or patent, and so forth, because they understand there's a lot of confusion out there. They know that a lot of sellers are not using properly the brand registry tools or the current even email queues. A lot of sellers who don't understand rights ownership that well, or who don't understand the limits of trademark registration, are submitting information about resellers and competitors that they consider unauthorized to sell their items. A lot of sellers are still assuming that if they submit IP claims, their brand will be gated. So the execs that were there mentioned that from the stage. And there were a couple of questions from the audience that indicated seller or brand owner confusion about what to report, how often to report it. On the one hand, they say don't submit the same thing over and over and over. On the other hand, they emphasize that in the last 2-3 months, they've been rewriting, redrawing a lot of their internal team management and the tools, the AI tools themselves. So they may have to ask you in the near term to resubmit things that were sent 3-4 months ago that weren't properly actioned. That does not mean they want you to keep resubmitting new materials for the rest of the year that you submitted last week, let's say, because they've already rolled some of this out. So questions on that, bad examples, bad experiences. The execs I spoke to expressed willingness to look at examples. They told me I could send them some examples. Obviously, I don't want to drown them in too much all at once, but I'm going to try to sift out a few good ones, test cases for the beginning. If you have things like that, definitely let me know. While I had their ear, I had a good, I would say 30-45 minute conversation with a couple of them, focused on not just the pain points in our operation, reporting some of this stuff, but also abuse cases, abuse reporting, bad behavior we see that Amazon's failed to police, we kind of shifted away from the intellectual property part to talking about current obstacles or hurdles in abuse reporting on the Amazon side and on the seller side. So let's start with the Amazon side first. They understand that a lot of lower tier staff, they might not have said it this way. My interpretation is that they understand a lot of seller support, account health, teams that aren't fully trained in abuse review, abuse reports. They know that those types of teams may tell you the wrong thing, suggest the wrong avenue. They're trying to fix that. I don't know if the AI improvements are going to account for that upfront directly, but they are aware that that's creating bottlenecks. And they're aware that people are emailing executives because they're not getting useful, reliable review on a lower level when they submit abuse reports. That's part one. Part two is they understand that sellers are reporting the same perpetrators numerous times. And I've been asking, why are these accounts not just blocked? This was kind of the sticking point in our conversation. They said they're working on identifying reoffenders, keeping them away from buyers, keeping them away from harming other sellers on the platform. Long story short, they're trying to do a full reassessment of what seller harm is defined as, what it means, how many times they're going to have to review a case to see if you're falsely accusing a competitor of harming you, because they know a lot of fake abuse reports are going in. And there's just some confusion and maybe a couple of kinks to iron out on their side that deal directly with, who are we punishing here? Are we punishing the wrong party? Are we being deceived by an abuse report? Are we being sent abuse report type info that's fake just to get us on somebody else's case, when actually it's the person who's doing the reporting that's guilty of the black hat behavior? That's their bottleneck. That's where they're stuck. And I'm not saying that to encourage black hats to exploit gaps in Amazon systems. I think they're hip to what's going on. It's just their reasoning for why they don't necessarily block a seller that they've just warned for something the first time they get an abuse report about them. By the same token, on the same note, I said, look, there are repeat offenders where with enough scrutiny and review, you can see that they shouldn't be selling. They're committing abuse over and over. They're continuing to do it because you're not blocking. As politely and professionally as I can say it, why aren't you blocking these accounts? These are repeat offenders. They obviously have bad faith practices in mind, and they're going to keep doing them as long as they can until you kick them off. I think that argument is finally hitting some pay dirt. We've seen traction with it on the abuse reports we've been submitting all year long, especially last spring, but now we've addressed it in person. And I think they're receptive to, again, more examples of that. They're not receptive to examples of abuse reports where it's speculation, casual observance, theories, things that aren't backed by evidence. I mean, if you're being attacked 6 ways from Sunday and you've got nothing you can show them, the evidence is only in their tools, at least give them some breadcrumbs to follow, put them on the right track. And then if they can find the cause of what you're talking about in their tools, they say they'll act on it. If they can't, we might have to find another way. That's a conversation you could have with me. If it's a more nuanced abuse case, they're aware that sellers who of ill intent are scoping out the AI tools, looking to game those. They're aware that once one loophole closes, another one might open. They're hip to all of that. What it means is you need to go to them with top-notch communication. And then if they communicate badly back to you, you can show that as an example of, hey, we gave you what you wanted. We didn't get a reliable or professional grade response. So we either need to communicate with somebody else, or we need whoever reads this to tell us exactly what else needs to be sent in for us to get this seller or this attacker off our backs. Q4 is around the corner, right? So clearly they've got a lot on their plate. They've got huge, ambitious plans, both on processes and teams in terms of maybe some retraining, some redesigned SOPs to make their abuse prevention more solid. And we can lobby for harsher penalties for the black hats, but beyond that, it sounds like they're trying to integrate manual actions with their newly revised, newly improved AI tools. There are going to be mistakes. There are going to be false positives. just make sure you don't compound that problem by wasting time with a bunch of seller support cases where either seller support reps or account health reps who have no idea what you're talking about are guessing themselves just to sound like they know what's going on. That'll waste their time. It'll waste your time. It'll create more bottlenecks. Don't do that. Get one pagers together with the communication you sent to Amazon, with the evidence of abuse. If you need another pair of eyes on it, show it to me. I'll take a look at it. And then we can get into some of the hands of the people that were at the Seller Growth Summit, because what I heard last week in New York was that they are taking this seriously and that they are open to example reviews. If you're sending some of these people examples, I mean, you can see who the speakers were at the summit. If you've already sent some and they didn't acknowledge them or they didn't reply to you, I've got their ear for the moment at least. So just show me what you've got and I'll try to back you up on reporting some of that abuse. Before I conclude this abuse reporting sidebar that I've created for this week's podcast, please note that they are aware that a lot of people are reporting abuse improperly. They're making false IP claims or unsubstantiated IP claims. They pointed out to me they've had to revoke brand registry for some brands who repeatedly submit fake or unsubstantiated abuse claims or IP claims. So they're aware of that too. And they wanted to make sure I'm aware, for the education of others, that a lot of brand owners still don't understand this stuff. And oh, by the way, a lot of them are still hiring, I don't know what you'd call them, assorted brand protection agencies, assorted, misguided, overly aggressive, not IP trained law firms that don't care what the law is, that don't care what Amazon's guidelines are, that are just looking to make a buck. They're aware that those people are out there, and they're aware that that's kind of polluting the system and making it harder for them to do their jobs. So that was kind of their warning shot over my bow, and to pass word along to people who are just doing abuse reports, doing IP claims wrong. All they want to say is just stop doing that. Think twice before you submit these things. Don't just believe everything you're told by somebody you've paid to help you out on this. Just because you pay a consultant, a service provider, a law firm, whatever, doesn't mean they know what they're doing. Doesn't mean you just shut your mind off and let them run with it. That can have bad detrimental impact on your account and on your brand registry, which of course, no one wants that revoked. That's your pipeline to A+ content. One last point on the Seller Growth Summit, and if I can think of anything else, I'll just add it to a future podcast as a kind of postscript, because I am going to be in Seattle. I'm going to be talking or meeting with some of the same people in person, and I'll have a good opportunity for kind of a part 2 conversation to the types of things that me and my team were doing in New York last week. I just want to close talking about Seller Cafe. Seller Cafe this time around was similar to what I experienced last fall in Seattle. Some of the Seller Cafe reps showed up saying that they had reviewed the material that was submitted by the brand owner in anticipation of their meeting, but they didn't have any solutions ready. So basically they showed up and said, I reviewed everything you sent. I can't tell you I'm going to get you an answer today, but I'm going to look into it and make sure you press for those answers. Their SLAs, their deliverables on Seller Cafe appointments are often days, sometimes weeks in the future. Some of those answers are very unsatisfactory, very general, and very diluted. And I'm thinking right now, at least, of one example with a brand owner, many millions of dollars at stake per year. The rep opened the conversation by saying that they had read everything. They were prepared to talk about it. As soon as we asked questions, as soon as we looked for solutions, the trail went cold pretty quickly. I don't know how many of you had that experience in Seller Cafe. It mimicked some of what I saw last fall. It looks like they're just there to kind of hear what you have to say, harvest info, promise a response some other time, promise to look into it. Hold them to that, because some of the brands that we were at Accelerate with last year came away empty-handed, came away looking for answers 2 weeks later that they still didn't have. Seller Cafe, I think, needs to improve between now and Accelerate and have a little bit more, maybe not answers by the end of that day, but answers by the end of that week, or just some ability to follow up with something tangible, substantial, researched, and ready would be good. I'm not necessarily planning to spend a bunch of time at Seller Cafe at Amazon Accelerate. I'm definitely planning to go to Accelerate. The Seller Cafe meetings, I think, are opportunities for you to vent and for them to listen, but there's not a lot of productive dialogue in terms of, I'm going to help you solve this. They might just refer it, kick the can down the road to somebody else who wasn't there at the time, who may have the opportunity to review it and get back to you. I think there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of they could schedule a call with you with somebody else for like a week later, somebody who is actually working on the team that you need, like compliance teams, catalog teams, whatever it might be, and have a more meaningful second conversation. The in the moment seller cafe conversation can be useful for research, can be useful for maybe giving you some homework to do, giving them some homework to do, but lots of room to grow there. And I didn't get as much benefit as I did either last fall or actually in 2024 is when I got the most out of Seller Cafe. So I think we're heading in the wrong direction on that. If you're heading to accelerate and you do book Seller Cafe appointments, just come as prepared as you possibly can be and be prepared to propose solutions, not to kind of sit back and wait for them to guide you. Be ready to guide them on what you think needs to happen next. You won't always know that in advance. Just do as much homework and as much prep as you can before you do that. Questions on the Seller Growth Summit? If you were there and we didn't have a chance to talk, I already gave my email earlier in this episode, chris@ecommercechris.com. Shoot me a note. If you were there and you're planning on going to Accelerate, or even if you're not planning on going to Accelerate in September, stay in touch with us. We're probably going to do another happy hour in Seattle around the time of the event. The happy hour we did in Midtown Manhattan went really well. If you were there, thanks for coming. I think we had 75 or 80 people throughout the course of the evening, which was great. I had a lot of meaningful conversations and I'm looking forward to having more. Thanks again for listening in, Sell Performance Solutions. I will catch you next time, hopefully in person.